Thank you for watching today. We have Tuesday Feels with Ricardo Sturdivant about to kick off. We've got Jason Leeser in the room as well as Ricardo. If you guys have been watching this show, we've been doing it for, let's see, several months. And it's always great to see your shining face. So thank you for watching today. We have Tuesday Feels with Ricardo Sturdivant about to kick off. All right. So before we get kicked off, let's just tell you a little bit about where we are and what we're doing. So right now we are live from Guy Aitchison's Reinventing the Tattoo Community, which is a place for tattooers, apprentices, collectors, and the curious to join together and talk about all things art, tattoos, life, you name it. If you want to watch us in other times other than live, you can find us in the Roku and YouTube channels. And specifically during the live stream, be sure to chat with us on the YouTube channels because we always watch and love your participation. Also, our latest event schedule and more can be found at reinventingthetattoo.com. Beyond that, we have our brand new evolution course. It's been started. The second trimester is right about underway. If you'd like to have more information about the evolution reinventing courses, go to reinventingthetattoo.com. As well as that, we've got some really cool live events and real world events coming up. As all of you just saw us in Hell City, we will be doing more soon. We've got the Indie Tattoo Expo coming up next week. We've also got Tony Urbanek's Rubber City Tattoo Invitational at the end of July. And in August, at the end of August, Hell City again. Beyond that, we have several weekly shows and events that are coming on every Sunday. You guys can find Jason Leeser, who is in the room already today with his skill building Sundays. Monday mornings, James Wisdom has his drawing class, as well as the Tattoo Weekly at 11 a.m. Eastern with myself, Gabe Ripley, and Jake Meeks. Beyond that, we have the Tattoo Now show and the Business Roundtable on Wednesdays and the Tattoo Collecting 101 on Thursday evenings. Otherwise, we're bringing all this content to you guys, and I know it's a lot, but thank you to our sponsors providing this for us for free to you. We've got Raw Pigments, an ink company that is tapping into the source with acrylic-free inks that have been impressing artists from around the world. We've also got World Tattoo Events with Alex providing the most comprehensive resource for tattoo events in the world at worldtattooevents.com. Beyond that, we have several affiliates that we're proud to support: DLives Pro, The Apprenticeship Diaries, Fireside Tattoo, and Eco-Friendly Tattoo Supplies.com. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump in with my wonderful guests. I should say hosts. How's it going,
Hey,
Ricardo?
host.
Great to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you too, Lauren. Thanks for the intro, as always. Yeah. How's everybody doing today?
Well, it's good to be back in the house with you guys.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, likewise. Everybody's been busy. There's been a lot of things happening. The world is coming back to life and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So that's a positive. Everybody's starting to gather together again, like human beings and stuff like that. And so that's been pretty fun, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And Jason, it's good to see you this morning, my man.
Likewise, bud. Likewise.
Yeah, sorry I missed you on Sunday.
No, you're not.
Lauren. Yeah, you are the
Don't lie
eye
to me,
to my
Ricardo.
pad,
Don't
kid
lie
sir.
to me. I know you're not sorry about that.
Okay. Then I take my apology back.
There you go. Thank you for being honest.
Yeah. Okay, cool. As long as it's what you want to hear, then I'm okay with it. But yeah, no, man. I thought today we might talk about the blank canvas. You know what I mean? How scary that moment can be sometimes. Even when you have a plan for a drawing already. I started this really large watercolor, and I don't really mess with watercolors too often. And it's been challenging. You know what I mean? I've realized that there's so many different facets to it. The size, first of all, the medium, the experimenting with the poundage of paper. I'm noticing now that like the heavier the stock of paper, the better it is, the more control you'll have. A lot of you artists out there, tattoo artists especially, that do a lot of watercolor flash sheets and stuff like that, might already know that, since it's like, I think, what is it? The Arches 300-pound paper that works out really well.
Yeah, that's like
exactly.
The Cadillac of watercolor papers.
Yeah. That's what. So it's really funny. Like, I'm working in a shop with 7 other people and stuff like that. All good dudes. I've known all these people. There's an apprentice there. Her name is Autumn. Really cool people. And I'm working on this painting and stuff like that. And all of a sudden she just comes over and she goes, "What pound paper is that?" And I've already spent, like, I don't know, 10 hours on this thing. And I'm like, "I don't even know." She's like, "Oh man." you should have got the heavy stock paper. I was like, thanks a lot. Like, that's cool. I've already put 10 hours into this thing, but that's fine. But you know what I mean? Like, it's a learning experience. And that's what I was trying to say a little bit ago, is like, even when you feel like you have a plan, sometimes it goes out the window, for lack of better words. Sometimes it goes out the window and you find yourself back at square one, right? And it's okay. I think the biggest thing is learning to accept those truths as we see them, truths that we see. But allowing yourself to be, what's the right word? Malleable to the moment, right? And I think it's important for us to take that into the drawings. I mean, I think Jason, I hope I'm not putting you on the spot too much, but we talked about your painting that you did the entire thing. You know what I mean? And then you ended up having to start all over from the very, very beginning of it, from scratch, right?
40 hours.
Like that was, yeah. You know what I mean? Or 40 hours, or 40 hours gained. Sometimes you can look at it that way too.
Well, I did learn a lot. And that's going to be a point I was going to bring up. Nothing that you do, anytime where you have to step back and do it again,
yeah,
that's not wasted. Because as long as you learned something from it, then it hasn't been a wasted opportunity.
Yeah, for sure, man. That's the most important part. You know what I mean? I think, was it last night we were talking? Like, I was real late to class last night, and I jumped on for a little bit, and it was awesome to see everybody again and stuff like that. And I jumped in on a really cool part of the conversation about a drawing that was being critiqued and everything like that. And man, so much good art in those classes, dude. It's great to be there. But we talked about what it is and where we were at when we would see other people's tattoos, other people's art, and be like, what's the secret? You know what I mean? Remember we were saying that? We're like, what's the secret? We were
talking about the Deadly Convention and how I want to go up there and just start asking every single person there, like, what is your secret? How did you get to be so good?
Yeah.
And then we all came up with the exact same answer, just in different.
Yeah, we all had different hard work.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, we all had different ways of saying hard work. It was like different languages, different backgrounds, different ways of explaining it. And that's the best part about this place, man, is that like we all have these different ways of speaking. You know what I mean? But there's this one common thread that we have sometimes, and there are words that do stretch throughout that entire thread for all of us, which is like, things like value scale or contrast or like edge lighting, things like that. You know what I mean? Definitive terms that help you understand your art and your approach a little bit better, which is really cool. But last night, hearing everybody at once pretty much say different ways of saying hard work was awesome. It was a good time. But yeah, I'll rant on as much as I can here, but I think basically I'm going to kind of keep that to a minimum. And I want to just really like kind of approach how I go about looking at this blank canvas. You know what I mean?
May I jump in a little bit here?
Let's see what you got.
All right. So you had mentioned that you really wanted to focus on the blank canvas, right?
Yeah.
For today's topic.
Yeah.
First of all, let's talk about what the blank canvas is.
Okay.
At its core, at its essence. And every now and then you'll see blank canvases being hung up in art galleries around the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I've looked into, why are you hanging up a blank canvas or like a white canvas? Why?
Mm-hmm.
But how is that art? Right? How is that worth millions of dollars? Literally all someone did was paint a canvas flat white.
Yeah.
Okay. The reasoning behind that, and this stands for a blank piece of paper, blank piece of watercolor paper, blank, stretch canvas that you have at your house, open, untattooed skin, anything that you can create on. What it is potential. It's potential in front of you. You don't know if that piece of paper that you have sitting to your left, Ricardo, you don't know what that's going to turn into. It has an unlimited potential to become anything you create on it.
That's a rocking way of saying it, man. That's a really rocking way of saying it. You know what I mean? And that's exactly what I talk like. I think that way with our life too. You know what I mean? Our daily life. You know, like it's a blank canvas every day. Not to sound too mushy and stuff like that, but it really
Hey,
is. You know what I mean? Hey, Faith, what's up, dude? How's it going?
It's going. It's going good.
Yeah.
Hola.
How's it going?
I have to be the different guy that says it in a different way.
How have you been? We haven't seen you for a while. How are you doing?
Good. What am I doing? Creating a color system, I guess.
Nice.
Still
That's
working on
killer.
finally coming out and doing a new weekly blog thing every week where I talk about some aspect of the system to kind of break it down. So I've been kind of deep into writing the blog thing.
Oh, nice. Okay. Hey, Faith, would you do me a favor?
Sure.
Could you turn your camera?
Is it supposed to be up and down?
Yeah. There you go. That's a little bit better. Now we can see. Now I don't have to go like this to see it. You know what I mean? Yeah.
About
That's
you?
killer. Doing pretty good. Doing pretty good. I've just been thinking a lot about like, fresh starts. You know what I mean? Fresh starts and how you get started on projects and like, when we sit in front of these like blank pieces of paper with like all this stuff that we have to do, like subject matter that clients give us or something like that. Like, what do we do with it? How do we start with it? And how do we get over that, like kind of that mental block sometimes, And that's what I've been thinking. And I was just going to kind of demonstrate it through the way that I approach like composition and stuff like that. We're like a larger scale tattoo. I was going to kind of like put down some like grid lines and stuff like that too, and some basic shapes and start going into when I start actually applying my light source and stuff like that. I like to try to apply it pretty soon in the drawing process. You know what I mean? So that way I can kind of start pressing out any detail or any subject matter that needs to get moved around, and it's pretty flow kind of process to it too. So, but that's it. Yours sounds way more invested. That's for sure.
You're I don't know. I feel like I'm off on a tangent sometimes.
Me too.
We all do that.
Get back into where, but
Yeah.
And I had a friend that used to say, "Trust the process."
Yep. We've been throwing that around a lot the last few weeks, and it's been really helpful for me.
Keep going.
Yeah, it's been really helpful for me to like remember to trust the process, because like we want this end goal so hardcore, you know what I mean, that we forget that there's this like entire timeline. It's like this whole all right, nerd time. It's like this whole like Star Wars thing that's going on with like Obi-Wan and stuff right now. You know what I mean? Like we're getting to see from when Luke was a little kid, he got dropped off, to like when he becomes the Luke Skywalker and stuff. You know what I mean? Through the Obi-Wan story. Like it's cool. I dig it. There's that missing gap being filled. So yeah, that's it.
I don't know
How
about
do you
you
guys-
guys, but as far as inspiration goes, when you sit down and you're in front of a blank canvas, how do you decide what to put on there? How do you decide what direction you're going to go?
Well, for me, like, I just kind of, I don't know, man. I guess that's a good question. I think I pick what I gravitate towards. This is usually like anatomy. You know what I mean? Anatomy of some sort. Like I just dig the expression of the body, the expression of the face and stuff like that, So I try to kind of like put that in a lot of the drawings that I do, or a skull or a snake. But sometimes it's things that I want to work on, Sometimes I want to work on like some texture or something like that. Like I want to study it a little bit more. So I'll sit down in front of like an actual life study and just kind of draw that. You know what I mean? Like do a bunch of different, like exactly like what Guy talks about, just a bunch of different thumbnails and stuff like that too. And then sometimes like I'll buy sketchbooks and just say, this one's going to be an only pen And I try to fill up that entire sketchbook with just pen drawings, or like this one's only going to be in charcoal, or this one's only going to be female faces. You know what I mean? So that's kind of the way that I approach it. How about you?
See, that's where I'm one of the most like unoriginal people ever.
Yeah.
Like for me, it's so difficult if I'm sitting down in front of something that's completely blank, unless I have a direction to take off in, even if it's a vague direction. Like, I'll look around at the studio and in like my little tattoo space. Maybe I'll look for a color that's missing or something I need more of. Maybe I'll look for subject matter. Maybe I want to go for, I've got a lot of like floral stuff up. I've got a lot of like Art Nouveau stuff. Maybe I need something a little bit darker, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll try to fill in gaps. And while I'm filling in those gaps, I try to work on whatever element I know I'm struggling with. For me, that's always been anatomy. And I'm sure that you've seen over this past year, like a lot of the things I've been doing, a lot of the exercises I've been doing have all been based around anatomy.
Yep.
Whether it's heads and faces or hands, two of the hardest things to draw, in my opinion. So I always try to incorporate something with a goal I'm trying to reach in every subject matter. Or I try to pick something that I've never done before, something to really help expand my horizons. For example, I think after I get done this and then I get done Medusa's painting, I think I'm going to do a painting of a fruit bat, right? Because I've never drawn a fruit bat before, and they look like little flying foxes. They have head shapes very similar to a fox, a little bit smaller ears, but it literally looks like someone took a fox's head, put it on a bat's body, and called it an animal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what they are. And I've never drawn one. So I know that that's going to be something that I want to try to draw. And then from there, that's probably going to turn into a series of bat drawings. From there, I'll probably, branch out and start doing like a snub nose bat or a vampire bat, even though those have been done to death or whatever, or a hog nose. Like there's so many different species of every animal in the world. And that gives you limitless potential.
Yeah.
Look at butterflies and moths. Perfect example, right? Everyone knows a monarch, right? But what about some of the more obscure butterflies around the world that are absolutely gorgeous?
Mm-hmm.
Or moths, some of the most exotic, rare moths, like Luna moths, right? Everyone sees them and they know that they're pretty, but no one knows what they are, No one's like, oh, that's a Luna moth. They're like, no, that's a pretty butterfly. And it's like, no, that's a moth. But that's something like, for me, I love learning. So I'm always constantly trying to learn about whatever it is I'm getting ready to do. I know you said you were starting to work a little bit more large scale, which is amazing.
Yeah. Well, no, I have been, but I got some new clients that are coming in that are willing to go really large scale and just let me do go ham on it, like do whatever I want to.
That's awesome. And, I know a lot of your drawings and a lot of your sketches tend to be more on the medium side. So I'm very excited to see in which direction you take this.
Yeah. Well, I like the way you're thinking. I like the way you approach it and stuff like that too, because like there's a lot to learn. There's a lot of information. Like, okay, so it's kind of like a traditional tattoo apprenticeship, right? Like when you first start, depending on your artist level, a lot of the times they have you come in and for the first few weeks or whatever like that it is for the first few months, you're just literally tracing flash. You know what I mean? You're doing all the line work and stuff like that. And then after an accumulation of so many pages of flash and you've nibbed it or you've painted it on or whatever, then you go in and you color it, right? Through that process, though, you're learning a lot of information. You're retaining muscle memory. You're developing muscle memory. You know what I mean? And it goes along a line. I think it goes along in line with what you're saying, which is what you're doing in that process is you're learning line work. You're learning the importance of where the lines go. You're learning how that relates to the contrast of black work to the color. You know what I mean? And what makes a solid tattoo as well. So that's like a lot of information that you're processing, and you're ingesting it, and you're starting to develop that muscle memory. I think it's the same thing with what you're saying too, Jason, is where it's like we take these weaknesses that we see for ourselves, that we're willing to admit, hey, I struggle with anatomy, or I want to learn more about anatomy of the life around me, you know, like butterflies and stuff like that. I see a lot of people like get moths, a lot of people get the butterfly tattoos and stuff like that. What if I was to study all these different animals, these other different species, and be able to incorporate that into the designs that people are wanting to get done and make it a little bit more unique? Have a little bit more of your own voice through that process and stuff like that too. You know what I mean? And I think that's really a really valuable thing to take away from what you're sharing with us today too, for all you viewers. But yeah, thanks for sharing that with us, man.
I'm always curious to see where people draw their inspiration and get their ideas from. You know, it's like because literally you're sitting there with limitless potential. Right now, inside that outline that you've drawn, you could draw anything. So the question then becomes, and this is something I really struggle with sometimes whenever I'm creating art for myself. Sometimes I just don't know what direction to take it. When you have possibilities to literally create anything, how do you choose?
Well, isn't that the coolest part about being an artist? You know what I mean? Is that like a writer of sci-fi or nonfiction or even fiction? You know what I mean? Like fiction versus nonfiction. You know what I mean? It's incredible because like you create this picture for other people to view and make it real for them, and they are observing it. You are almost guiding them into the important parts of the story, even. You know what I mean? Like they have no choice except for to look at certain things right away. And we've created that. We've made that corral for them. You know what I mean? It's really cool. And I agree with you. You know, like we create whatever it is that we want to do all the time. And how important is that for everybody, for all of us to be able to understand that in our life? It's pretty radical. But it all boils down again to the truth that we see as our own truth, and how that's molded by the world around us, and how we can observe through other people's perspectives and learn more about like this quote unquote truth. You know what I mean? The observable truth. It's pretty radical. And I've talked about this before a few months back, like a while back, about, and I did this little drawing of these, like the truths and this perspective line drawing. I was really inspired by this artist that was drawing for the Pee Wee Herman show. I can't remember his name, but we'll have to look him up. Let me look him up real quick. He did all these cool character developments for the Pee Wee Herman show and stuff like that, but later on started doing these paintings of just big words and like, you know, the kind of graffiti, but very simple and plain to see. Let me look him up real fast. I don't know if you guys have ever, you know who I'm talking about or seen the paintings I'm talking about, but artist on Pee Wee Herman. You think I would like, you know what? So here's the problem is that I kind of come into this with a little bit of an idea of what I'm going to say, and then just kind of go from there. But it'd be better, I think, to kind of think about the artist sometimes and pull them up beforehand and know the name, so I can just actually say it instead of wasting everybody's time here. Let me see here. Anyways, let's move on. We'll look it up later because I'm not finding it right away. So whatever. All right. But like I was saying, truth, our own truth. So like when we get to this is the outline of a sleeve. I've always approached it like this on analog kind of surface. You know what I mean? And I'm starting to go back to it. You know what I mean? Jason, you've provided us with some very detailed methods of drawing to scale on the iPad, and it works, dude. Like I've used it a couple times and it's like spot on. It's incredible to me because like other than that, you just have somebody kind of take a picture, or you know, on what I've seen a lot of people do is they'll take an actual tracing of the area they're going to tattoo, and they'll put a Sharpie down on it, and then they'll use that to scale on the iPad and transference. Right. You know what I mean? That there's still a little bit of guessing there. You know what I mean? And the problem with the iPad is that we spend so much time zoomed in to this one little space, and we're drawing all this little detail. And it's like any other tattoo. Once you scale out, it just becomes this little blob. You know what I mean? And that's the problem. And I've really liked going back to taking a piece of saran wrap, laying it down on somebody's arm, you know what I mean? Like folding it down, taping it all down where it needs to be taped, get the line drawing done on half the arm, wrap the plastic around to the other seam, and then draw that on the other side, opposite side of the plastic. And then laying that down on a tracing board, trace out the design, the area in a cleaner fashion, and then drawing on that. You know what I mean? And then it fits, it's made to fit. And it also kind of eliminates a lot of those detail issues. You know what I mean? Like a lot of times you'll just cram a bunch of little lines in somewhere, and that's going to get lost in a tattoo over time. You know what I mean? Like I really love pushing designs and stuff like that, but I've been tattooing since 1998, and I've seen some stuff come back that I've really spent a lot of time in, just these little areas and stuff like that. And then around it is looser, and it comes back and it looks like a quarter inside of a big softball.
So what
It's
you're
like-
saying is you won't tattoo a bicycle playing card King of Hearts on me in full detail at that size, right?
If
That's what I'm
saying,
hearing you say.
yeah, I'm saying if you want me to do it on you, I will do that on you. But if the general public comes in and they want me to do that on them, I'm gonna be like, hell no.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this is the shoulder cap.
Top of the
I don't
deltoid.
even know why I'm writing. You guys can't even really see that. Plus, if you saw it, let me show you my handwriting real quick. Let's see if you can even see. Does that look like the word shoulder to you?
S is that an A?
Yeah, exactly.
Scribble.
Exactly.
I saw
See what
a
I'm
B
saying?
in there.
No, there was a B in there. There was a B in there. Okay, so how about we just
Schobler? Is that a Schobler?
Schobler, to blave,
Mhm.
which means to bluff. But you know, so the most important part when it comes to like bigger projects like sleeves and things like that to me is this intersection right here, this little gap where the front of our shoulders meets our pec and our armpit, and the back end here where it meets our, what is this, our traps, no, our deltoids, right?
Well, that's
And-
your deltoid that you're touching now. Your deltoid is the top of the ball of your shoulder.
There you go, up here. Okay, cool.
That's
So
your deltoid.
lats,
Those are
our
your
laterals.
lateral.
our
Your
laterals,
lateral.
yeah, our lateral movements, right? And the armpit. These are the most important parts to me when you lay it down on a flat surface, because I like to take sleeves all the way up to the top of the cap of the shoulder and even a little bit more. And I really emphasize pulling the design all the way into the armpit area and the back of the armpit area too. One of my biggest pet peeves is seeing these amazing tattoos, and there's just this huge skin gap between the design and the armpit area. Like the only thing I really see is that margin. You know what I mean? It's like when you frame a picture and there's too much border versus the actual size of the photo. Like, why would you have a canvas this big for a painting this large? You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make any sense. All you really see is the importance of the frame. So these are the most important parts. So basically, always take your design to these points and make sure that they kind of flow into it too. What were you gonna ask me?
So, question.
Yeah.
What's your opinion? Because I know you said you that's a big pet peeve of yours, is leaving space right between those two major junctions.
Mm-hmm.
So then what would your opinion be on having almost like a softer margin or a softer kind of image fade out towards those spaces?
Yeah, that works
is
too.
that still, but is that still something that is a pet peeve? Or is
No.
that something that, as long as it looks good and appropriate for the design?
As long as it's good and appropriate for the design. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I see exactly where you're coming from. And it's not like it has to be hard lined all the way to the border. You know what I mean? Like, or the bounds. Like with a lot of traditional Japanese work, you'll have those isobars that have the curves on top of them, and they follow the pattern to make that curve. It's awesome.
Right.
It's got its own aesthetic and everything like that. But I do think that there's different ways of approaching art, even the same subject matter, like isobars, the traditional Japanese isobars, and making them softer so that way that the focal point is pushed out at you more. Like, why would you not want to do that? Like, that makes total sense. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you completely. I think it's a good practice, but I also think that it's still eliminating that margin. You know what I mean? We're still capping the shoulder. You're still going all the way into the creases and stuff like that too. And again, this is just opinion based. You know what I mean? I just figured that I'd kind of like start to approach the way I do these. All right. So the next thing I'll do is I'll make sure to draw a line of symmetry. I find the middle of the shoulder at the top, and I come all the way down to the wrist. Now, what happens is that on a lot of people, your arm will start to kind of twist forward, right? So this line of symmetry, I always try to get right in the middle of the elbow and the ditch, and I'll bring it all the way down to the top of the hand. That's important for me to be able to do that. A lot of times a lot of bodybuilders, a lot of the power lifters, they have this kind of turn to their arms and stuff like that. So you got to be very conscientious of that. Sometimes the line of symmetry will be a little bit further back. This is unfortunate because it might twist once they start to become a little bit more open. You know what I mean? But that's the way that it goes. What we're looking for is the importance of the subject matter and where it lies as far as what you see right away as soon as that person walks into the room. The first thing you notice, that's the most important thing to me, is where's the focal point? You know what I mean? At first glance, like when you just like look over and you see somebody, it's like, what is the first thing that you see? This line of symmetry is really important in that approach to me, because it helps just show the focal point a little bit more balanced, especially when the person walks in the room. Like, I will come a little bit further to the front of it though. Like, I'll draw the line of symmetry.
I was just going to ask you about that.
Yeah, but what I actually follow is about a 1/4 inch right in front of it. So there's actually two lines of separation here.
Well, because you mentioned when someone first walks into the room, but then that would put, if you're looking at their arm when someone first walks into a room, like at you, towards you, you're not staring at the outside of the arm. You're actually looking at the front of their bicep.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
You know, so I think it depends on which way they're walking into the room, but
yeah, because nobody walks into the room like this, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Unless you're shimmying.
Well, I mean, I have every now and then, but you know.
Yeah. So like what we're saying here is though, is that like whenever somebody walks in the room, you're gonna walk shoulder straight forward, and you're gonna see a little bit more of this area, a little bit further, a little bit sooner.
Yeah.
But the problem is that we don't want to move everything right to the front of the arm, because then it throws everything off when you do look at it from the side profile, right? So you want it to be just a little bit more forward on the shoulder here than what you would naturally do. Like, so any faces and things like that, you want the majority of the face to be almost on the front of the shoulder here. That's going to help with that dimensional view. Like this is the one thing, and I've noticed a lot of people recently starting to put the tattoo drawings on what Procreate and other tattoo tools have been doing, which is offering 3-dimensional images of body parts and things like that, and it's awesome. Personally, myself, at this point, I don't see the functionality of it, but I do see the observational aesthetics, like the benefits of the aesthetics of it. And it can help you learn a lot about what we're talking about right now, and kind of wrap your head around the actuality of flat analog drawings, 2-dimensional surfaces. But this is the way that I've approached that for a long time when it comes to analog drawing. So with that being said, I'll also divide this arm up, knowing full well that the elbow is going to almost always follow this back pit of your arm. And what I've done is I've divided the arm in the cross section where the joint is. That's going to make an instant X marks the spot for me for the elbow. And I'm also going to draw down the line on the front side of it too, because most of the time, generally speaking, this is going to follow right down the middle of the bicep into the ditch area. And again, X marks the spot. Also, triangles. So this is the most important part to me. Anybody can do this. This is easy to start applying your images and things like that. But we want to start talking about proportion and the importance of value in size of main subject matter, secondary subject matter, and tertiary subject matter. The main focal point should rest, like we were talking about. And I like to do drawings whenever I'm doing it, whenever people come in and they have 30 million different pieces of subject matter that they want in their entire sleeve. I try to tell them, look, let's break it down to 3 important pieces of information. Just give me the top 3, because it should be first, second, and third. The rule of threes, right? And I will try to incorporate the main subject matter throughout the entire piece. So there will be different elements of it throughout the rest of the tattoo. The secondary will be involved with it, interacting with that main focal point, the main subject matter. And the third will be like what we were talking about a little while ago. And that's the reason I talked about it first, these borders, the bounds, the things that kind of bring the piece together, that rest in its environment, right? It'd be like a rose with no bush. If you didn't do that third piece of subject matter, there'd be no leaves, there'd be no stems, there'd be nothing that held it. It would just be a rose floating all by itself, right? But those all interact with it because there's cast shadows and stuff like that that come from other roses that might be over it, leaves that are casting onto the main subject matter, things like that. You know what I mean? And that makes you and the viewer believe that you're a little bit more involved in this image. You are submersed that much more into it because subconsciously you recognize that as our truth. Damn it. I love it when a plan comes together. So, okay. One of the most important parts here for me is intersecting angles. Our eye wants to gravitate towards intersecting points of information. It will automatically gravitate towards those points of intersecting information before it will anything else. I don't really know the exact science of that, and I'm sorry that I can't quote on that a little bit more. Maybe Jason can, but I know that for me, in all of my images, I will always start with it's almost like a geometric tree of life. It's like it's a little bit more modified than the geometric tree of life. If you guys get a chance, look it up. It's like the linear points of intersection in the seed of life. All those little circles that kind of intercede with each other. There's also an energy.
You could use.
Yeah.
One term you could use there is points of convergence.
Points of convergence. I like
where
that.
you have different elements that converge at one singularity.
Yeah, it's powerful, right? It's the energy that kind of converges. Points of convergence. Yeah, it's awesome. So the reason that I drew these Pac-Man kind of guys, lesser and greater, is to show that these are the points where I will start drawing these lines, and I will take them all the way down the arm, right? With the goal of them intersecting as close to possible with that original line of symmetry. And I will make them parallel to each other. They don't have to be super exact, but they become pretty parallel to each other. It's almost like an Argyle pattern, right? And the good thing about this is that once you start doing this method, lines should intersect at all these other points of the natural flow of our body. So you can see how this line already intersected with the elbow. And then I'm going to pull off this back point, and it's going to intersect pretty close to that ditch. Okay. We want them to be as parallel as we can get them. And you can kind of fudge them and manipulate them a little bit, like wipe off, erase a little bit on the person's body. But anytime I draw on their body, I always do these lines first. And they're like, "What are you doing? I didn't want line work. I wanted a bird." I'm like, "Don't sweat it, dude. We're getting there." So let's do that today. Let's do a face of a woman and a bird. How about that? These lines will all connect.
Looks like a tattoo roll of thirds.
I'm sorry?
The roll of thirds is?
The rule of thirds, yeah.
Like
that's exactly what this is. The tattoo, like just do this as a tattoo and be like, there you go. There's a rule of thirds.
Like a roll of thirds lined around an arm instead of a flat rectangle.
Exactly. Yeah. And at this point, you should be able to take this surface and warp it. And on the back end of it, the underside of the arm, all these points are going to line up. So you should technically be able to draw these lines all the way around the arm, and just practice on some friends sometimes, you know what I mean? Or like some other clients or some other tattoo artists that are there with you. Like just try to get that broken down, do some different colors of markers and stuff like that too. And just try to get them all lined up and pay attention to the points of convergence, like Jason was talking about, the intersecting points. Pay attention to where they lie. That's going to help us when this is the application that I've used, that whenever a person comes in for a consultation and they're throwing all these different ideas at me and stuff like that, the first thing I start to hear is, okay, do you want black and gray or color? I'll break it down from there. And then I start asking them about the subject matter. What I'm doing when they're doing that is I'm placing basic shapes inside of these little quadrants, right? And I'm trying to figure out the layout as they're speaking to me. This makes it that much easier for me to be able to give them more feedback, to be able to guide them in the direction that we need to go as far as knowing what is going to make for how I tattoo a long-lasting tattoo. That's the most important part to me, is I know the style that you're looking for. I know what we're going to do. You know, I know how I can do that. If you want to get tattooed exactly like this, what you're bringing me as far as Pinterest goes, go to that artist. You know what I mean? But if you want me to do a version of this myself, then I'll do it for you. But the most important part to me outside of that is the longevity of the tattoo, and knowing that it's going to last after that person leaves the shop. So like we said today, the face and the placement. Let me see if I can flip this image real quick. Actually, I'll just find another face real fast. I usually don't like to draw like this either, where the picture is so far away from my reference, or the reference is so far away from my canvas and everything like that. But for today's sake, we'll kind of go with it and see how it works. Still waiting on a couple things from Amazon. For some reason, they like to tell you that things are on their way, and they're not, because I'm waiting for some.
So while you're
some camera stuff.
Ricardo,
yeah,
while you're pulling that up, I've got a question for you.
Okay.
There are certain artists out there that will take the plane of the arm,
yeah,
and they'll use that almost as a perspective grid, a perspective guide, where they'll start out with foreground closest to the wrist, working all the way up to background, all the way up at the top of the deltoid.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at the method that you're using, knowing that you know what you're doing, how do you factor in perspective as far as like overlapping elements or things of that nature to this kind of method?
Yeah, I follow these lines. I follow these lines. It's simply put. I mean, that's I don't know how else to explain it. I mean, I follow all of these angles. You know what I mean? And I think the placement of the force perspective is all dependent upon the subject matter that we're choosing to. You know what I mean? Like, for example, if we were to do like a Godzilla tattoo, you know what I mean? Like, just real quick off the top of my head, we could do a larger Godzilla up here. Down here at the forearm, we could put, you know, a smaller Godzilla in the cityscape and stuff like that, and then do the lines of the buildings kind of following this area coming out towards us and going into this angled point right here of interest. Does that make sense to you?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just kind of curious about that.
Yeah, or you could do it up here too, like, but they all follow these angles. They all follow this perspective because of the way that the arm naturally sits. I'm not trying to obstruct that at all. I'm trying to adapt everything that the client wants and everything that I draw into these angles, because it's just a natural fit. It's non-obtrusive to the arm and things like that. You know what I mean? I've seen some tattoos of dragons and snakes and stuff like that, where there's a line of body that just comes almost straight across, and the only thing I see is this line right here. You know what I mean? That could have been eliminated so hardcore, because you could have just added a little bit more dip to the curve of the belly of the snake, or the curve of the belly of the dragon, and it would have just flowed with this intersecting angle in here that much better. I don't know about you guys, but that's been my approach to it for a long time. As far as like the way I see other people's tattoos and stuff like that, you know. Oh, hey, look, there I am. Yeah, I found a picture. I'm sorry, go ahead. What's up, Face?
How to do it, like I learned on tracing paper and flat, you know, so that's how I originally, but I like to just, I take a picture of the arm from outside, front and back, and then I slice it, and I make a grid like that, but it's 3 pictures of the arm. So it's like, it gets the shape.
Yep.
Similar, but it's just that there would be a like faint arm back there, so I can get like the shape of the wrist and like stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's like I can't do the 3D modeling and stuff. Like it's just necessary. It's a whole other workload for me for why. You know what I mean? Like if people are into it, I can do it like that and they figure it out and they like it, but it seems kind of like unnecessary for that. For me, anyway.
Yeah, that's I agree with you. That's kind of where I was coming from whenever we were talking about like the 3D models and stuff like that you can get now too. You know what I mean? Like I think at this point, and there's going to be somebody that uses it in a way that I've never thought of. You know what I mean? That's the beauty of tattoos. That's the beauty of art. You give somebody the same brush and the same paint and the same mediums to accomplish this painting, and they're going to do something entirely different than you. You know what I mean? And that's the beautiful part about it, is that there's no one right truth, right? There's no one right truth to our approach to art. There's no one right truth to our approach to our life. And it'd be cool if we all started accepting that a little bit more, because this place would be a lot more fun if that was the case. You know what I mean? But anyways, yeah. So it's interesting that you said that, because I think at some point there will be somebody that's going to utilize that tool, and we're going to be like, what? How did you do that? That looks so rad. And that makes total sense on the reason that you use that application for that tattoo design, you know? There's that Protoplast one that I've got from Tattoo Smart. That one's amazing. You know what I mean? The way you can apply those patterns and stuff like that and warp them and like mold them to fit the body and stuff like that. As far as 2D goes inside of Procreate, but this still isn't a 3D application. You know what I mean? But still, like I would have never thought that you could do something like that. And then there it is. You know what I mean? And it makes it so much more resourceful. It makes it so much less aggravating. You're able to create some images. And the most fun part about that brush in particular is exactly what we're talking about, where it's the same brush that everybody gets. We all buy the same package, but there's so many different designs. There's so many different ways of manipulating that one brush in that application that makes it unique to yourself. You know what I mean? But it's all the same box of crayons, basically. So it's pretty neat.
Watched Jake has like the webinar of his Find Your Style thing.
Yeah.
I watched that, and like the last couple of weeks I've been trying to find style, like paying more attention to what my marks look like.
Yeah.
And accepting the marks that I have fast, because it's fast and it's always a little impressionistic, and I can't really get away from that. So I'm trying to accept my own, find and accept like my style of, like there's got to be some compromise. I feel like compromise to what the market is, and then compromise to what I'm able to do.
Yeah.
So I've been trying to concentrate on the marks that I make. So I've been stressing out.
I think it's good, Faith. I think you bring up a really interesting topic, because I've talked about this a lot with other tattoo artists and like the guys that I work with right now and everything like that. I think Jason and I have had this conversation before too, but you know, the market is what the market is right now. There's so much information out there right now, free or paid for, or attainable in one way or another, versus those two comments, or those two words, right? For your free or paid for. And like, we all have the same information at our fingertips. And like the one thing that's going to separate all of us as tattoo artists at the very soon point, I feel, is going to be the way that we approach tattoo, the way we approach the art. It's like any other painting. You know what I mean? Like, how many times have you heard somebody say, how much did you pay for that, in a very questionable way? Like, I can't believe you would pay that much money for a tattoo. Or I can't believe you would pay that much money for a t-shirt or some pair of jeans, or like, or like a painting. You know what I mean? Like, why would you do that? And they have no love for it whatsoever. But for some reason, it's spoken to you to the point where you're able to go, yeah, I will definitely spend that much money on that. I have no problem. That's totally worth it to me. You know, and then vice versa, where they'll buy something that's just like, why would you spend money on that, dude? Like, what are you thinking? You know, there's two sad parts about that. One is money. The first and most important part is the money, the value that we give on that and the way it drives us in our life and everything like that. You know what I mean? It's unfortunate, but, and then the other one is like I said, you know what I mean? Like our approach to things that can be appreciated by other people. It's important for us as artists, as the creator, to be adaptable, to be malleable, and like to be able to understand other people's perspectives. Like I've approached so many sleeves like this, you know what I mean? I've approached so many smaller tattoos like this, and the client will give me a different idea for placement. And I'm like, why didn't I think about that, dude? You know what I mean? Instead of being snippy and saying to the client, well, you don't know what you're talking about, or getting an attitude because I've spent so much time on it and they want to change it, right? I try to learn. I try to change it. I try to give them what they're asking for and question why. And sometimes the result ends up being better than what I even thought about doing it. It helps me out on the next drawing. You know what I mean? It's important for us to be able to do that. So this isn't like the end all be all way of doing things by any means. It's just the truth that I've come to find that it works for me. You know, and I thought I'd share it with you guys. So here we go. So let's say the face, right? Like we were talking about before, we want it to be more towards the front of the arm. I will always leave a patterned, repetitive gap. I try to think of it the way you would the border on a piece of paper. Like there's a gap that needs to be maintained consistently throughout the top of the arm. Okay. This is going to allow for some breathing room. It's going to allow for any other like secondary or like we were talking about before, tertiary backgrounds, tertiary subject matter that can become background, that can come into the foreground even, which is cool because I've learned so much with Guy about that application, like taking a blurred out background or a less important subject matter and bringing it to the focal point so it can kind of help create that depth and everything like that too, along with shading techniques and lighting techniques and things like that. But the basis of it, I think, would be something along those lines. So I'm paying attention now to this V, right? I'm going to pay attention to this V. Can you guys see me?
Not right this second.
Okay, let me see here. How about now? Nope. For some reason, my phone. Oh, I think I'm getting a battery alert.
Where'd you
That's
go?
why.
There you are.
There you are.
There we are. There we are. I think I'm getting a battery alert. So we might have to. Let me see how much charge I have. Hang on one second. I'm sorry, guys. Right at the important
I
part.
actually have to get rolling, Ricardo.
2%. Do you? Okay, cool, man.
Yeah. Thank you for having me on. Really
You're welcome.
appreciate it. Everyone,
Yeah.
Faith, Lauren, thank you guys very much. And I will catch up with you guys this coming weekend from Calgary.
Okay,
Nice,
yeah, Jason,
dude.
just let me know when you have some times, and it'd be great to see everyone and a whole new scene.
You
Yeah.
got it. All right,
Safe
guys.
travels.
Take care. Thank
Safe
you.
travels, brother. Yep.
What's up, Faith? I didn't get to say hi. I was on just on the phone before.
Fine.
How's your day going?
Good.
Cool.
How's the weather down there, Faith?
Hot. It's getting
Yeah.
hot. Well, sometimes.
No, she's not in the Midwest, Ricardo.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
Yeah.
It's kind of walk from air conditioning to air conditioning in the summer.
Okay, well, you can come up to the Wisconsin sometime, Faith, if you ever want. It's like actually a nice summer in the Midwest, you know?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
90s is hot, 80s and 70s is normal.
Here,
Yep.
it's just, you just get used to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
From one air conditioning to another and kind of thing. But what you were saying before about plants, I've been starting to I find patterns in things.
Mm-hmm.
This concept of what I call the client's art IQ,
Mm-hmm.
which is how much they understand about art, like what Like you can have a client who's like not an artist, who might be a collector or something and understand it. And like there's this, when you first start art, right, you start to get better and better. And then at a certain point, you begin to sort of understand like what you would, like what I started to understand last year, stuff you would learn in art school and stuff like that. And you begin to apply that, but then the tattoos that maybe impressed you before, they're not impressing you anymore because your art IQ is gone. And for clients, it's hard because it's like, it doesn't matter who it is, you might understand what you're trying to do. And I think personally, when an artist gets to a certain level to where they're like at the top of the industry, sometimes clients, the amount of clients and that quality of art greatly goes down as you get higher and higher. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I could see that.
Harder for somebody at the top of the industry to find clients who understand their work than it can be somebody that's in the middle industry where they can kind of pull people or sort of concepts of what art is. Like, and like a client, I don't want something that they can understand. So if you're at a certain level and you can't, there's no way to like convince them that like just an outline isn't the way to go. You know what I mean? Or like,
Yeah.
Like, so I've been trying to figure out a way to like in your position, like where you're at right now, probably hardest to find. Like,
Tell me again, because you kind of broke up.
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit, Faith. Like every few words.
At a certain level, like the level that you're at, like you always seem very frustrated with the clients, but I think that there just aren't enough clients that necessarily understand the artwork. Does that make sense? Because like artwork, the clients sometimes just, they want what they want and they want something simple that they can kind of understand. Maybe that's not even that artistic. And like, so there becomes that dichotomy. Because I feel like, I don't know what it is, but like there's a, I guess the frustration just never goes away, I guess, with clients, right?
Well,
yeah.
Well, I hate, well, first of all, I'll say I hate, I definitely didn't want to come across like I was frustrated with clients. I was like more or less saying that I'm more or less saying like what you're trying to say, which is, you understand art in a different way than the client does. And you've approached it in the manner of all these resources and tools and time that you put into learning about the techniques to make the image. And that's what can get frustrating, because you've taken all that time and effort and you put a drawing in and somebody's like, I don't like it. Like, well, why not? Why don't you like it? And then I think the frustrating part is not the client themselves, but when they can't explain what it is that they don't like about it. And I think that's true for every conversation that we have with anybody, you know what I mean? But that's where the magic lies. And first of all, thank you so much. It's humbling to hear you say like where I'm at in my level, because I still feel like I struggle all the time. You know what I mean? I still feel like I'm learning and stuff like that too. So it's not like I feel like I'm any different than anybody else. And in all actuality, I feel like I'm still right here with everybody else learning. You know what I mean? And I think that's one of the secret parts to what we're saying. And what I'm trying to convey with everybody else is you have to be able to be able to put your own voice down sometimes to be able to learn a little bit more about your voice, like what you're saying with this Jake Meeks learning your style thing. He's given you different tools and different ways of approaching the same methods that you use, you know what I mean? And he's given you different ways of viewing the same concepts that you've already learned, you know what I mean? And I took the seminar when I was at BYOB, and it was awesome, because he was saying, like, for example, when you use like an octopus arm, like let's think about other things that are, in a conal kind of shape, or like a cylinder kind of shape, you know what I mean? And I was like, how about chocolate chip cookies? He's like, perfect. You know what I mean? Like when you look at a chocolate chip cookie, you're not looking at the exact reference of a picture of an octopus. You're actually looking at just the importance of the shape of it, right? And I think that's, I'm hoping that I'm shedding some light on what you're saying, Faith, which is like, where does that frustration end? I don't know. I think it's an edge that we all need. And I think it's important that we stop looking at it as the word frustrating and looking at it more as opportunity. You know what I mean? Because like it's important for us to take that frustrating part out of it, that indoctrinated definition of that word, which is frustration, which has all this negative connotations to it, and that invokes this emotion of like negativity and stuff like that with us in that moment. And it's important for us to kind of like turn it around and be like, this is an opportunity. I have an opportunity. I'm actually like breathing and alive and talking to this person right now about something that they're going to be willing to wear forever. You know what I mean?
I'm
So like it's
kind of like not the thing, but it's just a matter of like my clients are everything. But then there's some clients that I've had to let go, right? And it's a question of just understanding the artwork. And then is it a question of they need a different artist, maybe that they can understand better? But I just imagine how frustrating the higher you get.
I think you said it perfectly right there. It's like that's exactly what it is. You know what I mean? Like sometimes in our journey we're at just different points of information. We're at different points of like transferring and accepting information, right? So like you are able to communicate with some people and they get it right away. Or you can explain it and then they start to see it a little bit more like what you're trying to paint the picture of them for. And like I think that you said it perfectly. Like sometimes you're just not going to mesh well with some clients. And I think that it's important to have that patience to be able to discover that with them instead of for them though. You know what I mean? And like at some point though, there is a time where you have to say, okay, look, check it out. There's these other artists in the shop. I think that they might be able to do something better for you. I think they're going to be able to give you something a little bit more. And when you're a hungry artist, that's hard to do because we need to eat and we need to pay our bills and stuff like that, right? But the important part, and call it whatever you will, karma. I'm not sure if I believe in that word karma anymore, but in the way that we know it, right? But like I like to think of it like appeasing the tattoo gods, right? Like you're doing the better thing for the client and you're giving them the tattoo that they want, and that's the important part. The money is just so temporary and things like that, you know what I mean? So it's important that you do the right thing. That's going to come back on you too. You know what I mean? In a good way. I've done that a lot of times in shops when I was coming up. And it is so cool when I would see a person out on the street and they would come up to me like, hey man, thank you so much. Like I can't tell you how much it meant to me that you passed me along to the person that gave me the tattoo that I'm really in love with. You know what I mean? Like that's awesome. And that's what's totally worth it. So like you hit the nail on the head though, Faith. Like I think that's what it is. Like you just have to accept the fact that sometimes it just doesn't work well with you and that person. We're all different, right? And we all like learn things differently and we all hear things a little bit differently or want different things than each other do, right? So what are you going to do?
Sure.
Yeah.
I think recognizing that early on will save you the word we will not say, frustration, you know? Yeah. Recognizing that and being okay and comfortable with that not every single match is a perfect match.
Yeah, totally. You know what I mean? And it's like dating. You know what I mean? Like sometimes, you know, I look back on some things sometimes, just interpersonal relationships, you know, office relationships, like business relationships, you know what I mean? Like you're just at different points of intersection. You know what I mean? You're at these different points of energy. And we're on this path and sometimes they cross and they fucking meet up really well. But other times you're running parallel to each other.
Speaking of paths, one thing that I always find super interesting is like the path doesn't start at the intersection, right?
Right.
And that's so interesting. Even like the fact of like the reinventing community and stuff. It's like, so we're the trajectory of our actions is not where it ends. You know, it's so cool that we're throwing these concepts and these things or these other artists or these designs or books or educational content. We're throwing it out there. And then the points of intersection haven't come yet, you know, in a lot of these things, which I know that we're all going to experience, especially like Faith, the whole impact of the WIN system, or Ricardo, the whole impact of these drawing groups. We honestly, we don't even know yet. We're just throwing them out there. And when they do intersect, I think like it's gonna be very, very powerful because we've all had those points in which maybe the client hasn't worked out, or maybe like a distributor or a vendor or any of those things. And we think like, shit, but really we just haven't necessarily met those points yet, like on your drawing.
Yep. And without them, we wouldn't be the negative and the positive effects of it, right? Like we wouldn't be where we are at this moment without them. you know? So like, it's pretty cool. Like it's all one opportunity. And like to kind of talk a little bit more about that point that you just made, Lauren, like for example, like this weekend, I get to go and hang out with Guy Atchison again. You know what I mean? Like
Oh shit.
yeah, it's crazy to me. Like I can't believe it. Like I remember when I first started getting interest into tattooing, I worked at some crappy little data entry place. The last real job I ever had was like at a data entry place where I would sit down and draw on the back of my paper that I had to write down these numbers on, and I still got more work done than most people. I was like, what the hell? This sucks. But in my cubicle, I had cut out all the tattoos out of magazines, and I was like, that's awesome. That's awesome. And all these guy pictures were there. You know what I mean? Like it's like incredible to me. And now here I am, how many years later, 20 something years later, almost 30 years later, and I get to hang out with this dude. And he's such a cool person too. You know what I mean? And like, he's the one that started this for me, this idea of knowledge, this idea of like learning more and you know, putting a little bit more investment and time into something. And like, we all see these people that are just there already, but there's this path, there's this like destination that they've started on and not even realizing what they were doing. You know what I mean? Like all these master painters and things like that, they were just painting the best that they could and trying to convey their voice, even if even that, you know, like I think some paintings are just paintings of people because they think it looks cool, and it ends up being this subconscious kind of leaking out onto the canvas or onto the tattoo and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So to go more to that point, Lauren, like, but the best thing we can do is just put out the positive energy for it with it, and like the energy, like that hard work, that drive. And I really dig that wind color system too, man. It's awesome seeing some of those.
Dude. Yeah, that's one of the things in terms of trajectory. And it's easy for me because I'm looking at the thing right behind you on your canvas. And it really reminds me like we're all going, but yet we all intersect in different places, you know, and but the intent, when you started drawing that line, the intent wasn't just to draw a line, you knew where you were going.
Yep.
And that's one thing I do admire about you, Faith. Like you didn't just decide, hey, I'm just going to do this. You're like, no, I know exactly where I'm going. I'm going to do this. And so you set out on your path and you didn't stop. It took you 14 hours a day for 14 months of your life, like nonstop, because you knew where you were going. And I think that's not really sure where I'm going with that, but I do admire that because when you're on that path, it's easier to intersect with people who are also on a similar path in their own life. And then it all blows up.
Yep.
Before tattooing, I played guitar. I was obsessed with John Mayer, and there's an interview where he gets invited to Oxford to just a bunch of music kids. And he's like, sure, and he just goes and he tries to articulate how he just came up, kind of like he was nothing, and then just all of a sudden he kept step by step, just kept getting higher and higher on the food chain until eventually he was at the top. And that kind of thing doesn't happen to people. And when you ask him how he did it, he said that he just looked at the cards he had and he played his move. And it wasn't like a planned trajectory, even though he always had his eyes kind of set on where he was going. So it's just a matter of like every moment we have cards that we play and we play our best move. And sometimes they just start to stack up, and these small, like weird movements of just where you are, just meeting Guy Atchison and like becoming friends with him, or if you're meeting Raw Ink and having that, Vincent having that person where I was going, and you're just playing these cards that you have, and it's just a matter of, like you said, you got to have that goal. Like the goal is always there, and you think that you're going to go like that, but you end up going like that, just up all. You end up in cities that you don't know that you're supposed to be in, and you end up working with people you never thought you'd even meet. You know what I mean? And it's just this, it's like you kind of have to, small risks.
Yep.
In like small risks, talking to somebody that to, or you know what I mean, or email, or just trying to do something that people might not understand, but that's how I always got my inspiration, was that one interview. I had a quote up on the wall for a while.
I like that one a lot, actually.
But it's like this, I don't know how to say that. It's just each situation, you just look at your cards, you play it, and then you move forward, win or lose, and you just keep going.
Yeah, that's awesome, Faith.
Great interview for anybody.
Yeah.
John Mayer.
Why don't you tell us where it's at?
That's on YouTube. You just
Okay.
type, I'm sure it'll come up. He's
You
in a
broke
really-
up when you said that. Will you say it one more time, please?
It's on YouTube. If you just search for John Mayer Oxford uniform, he's like in a sweater with a bunch of music kids, and I don't know. It was inspiring for me to hear someone
awesome.
as is articulate how we got there, and
Mhm.
kind of something like that.
There it is. I should pull it up. There you go. People who
Yeah.
shape our world.
But that's for you.
I'll screenshot that real quick. There we go.
Yep, he might be coming down. Yep.
Radical.
And he's just that's where I draw my inspiration, I guess.
That's awesome to hear you say that. You know what I mean? Like a lot of us as tattoo artists, as artists, we keep trying to draw from the same pool, so to speak. You know what I mean? But it's important to have those other venues of your life that are impacting in one way or another, and be able to draw inspiration from something outside of the medium of art entirely. You know what I mean? Mine, for me, is life, is real life, and starting to learn it in my own way, which ends up being another pattern to me. Like you're talking about patterns, I think it's a lot like an ocean. You know what I mean? Like we're the single wave at that moment, and we crash, we come out, we bring some sand back with us, and the next one takes a little bit more of that and keeps doing it again and again and again. You know what I mean? And I found myself in this cycle. And the more I realize that for myself, the more beautiful it is, especially whenever I start to realize how hard it can be at those moments of I want to fucking give up and just go back to the way that I used to do things. You know what I mean? And I think that's one of the things that we need to cover whenever we're talking about these effects that we make. It's not always easy. You know what I mean? Like think about, like we were talking about with John Mayer, like think about if he would have given up a lot sooner than what he did. And I'm sure, you know, doing things differently than everybody else around you, it's hard because you can get made fun of, you can get told that it's not going to work, you can get told, you know, whatever it is that's negative that might hinder, or our own self-thought, even that's the worst one. And I still struggle with that from time to time. You know what I mean? And it's important to remember that those are the moments that are crucial. You know what I mean? Like those are the moments where we have to keep going. And for me, I feel like I'm in the right place at the right time whenever I do start to experience those things now, where instead of reacting the way that I used to react, I start to try to like absorb them a little bit more and marinate on them, so to speak, like marinate or meditate on it. You know what I mean? And it's hard. There's been a lot of hard moments this past couple of years, you know what I mean? But it's pretty awesome because on the other side of it, it all connects, you know?
I tell myself that I have the best job in the world. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like you have the job that everybody wants, you're at the top of it. I'm here, I'm drawing for a living.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it.
No, and it's like, what is wrong? Like, why am I not just enjoying painting? It's like, what happened? You know, what happened to just, and the fact that tattooing, like at the end of the day, it's like golf, it's a solo sport. You and fear, just staring at this, you know, making small talk, trying to get this art out.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you forget to enjoy it.
Process. That's that process, man, for sure.
Also, the other thing I've been thinking about is when is enough enough? You know, like what is success? What is a successful tattoo artist? Is it the guy who works a half day and spends the rest of the time in his family? Or is it the guy who's at the top of the industry? Is it the guy that never sleeps? Is it the guy posting? Like, who is it? Like, which one has it?
I think the only one that can really measure success is ourselves, when we kind of forget that like it's not for everybody else. I think the level of happiness would measure it. Like the guy that gets to work half a day and spends the rest with his family is probably a lot happier than the guy who doesn't stop. But the guy who doesn't stop might not be happy if he's spending time not pushing himself. So like definitely an internal question, but we gauge success based on all these strange factors, you know?
Absolutely. Not only that, but what are the other mitigating factors that are included into the reasoning for never being at home, for never taking a break? Like, what is it that you're avoiding? That's what I've come to discover. You know what I mean? Or what is it that why is it that you're working so hard like that? Why are you working nonstop? Are you trying to collect a number of bodysuits? Are you trying to make that lasting impression? You trying to leave behind a strong legacy? Or is it for your dollar amount? Is it for that number that keeps going up in your bank account that like you don't take with you? Like I'm on Lauren's page quite a bit where it's like I want to be able to pour my heart and soul into a drawing, into a tattoo, and hopefully have success with it. And then if not, then you learn from it and you try to take that on to the next one with you. You know what I mean? And then be able to take the rest of the day and enjoy the sunshine and enjoy that breeze and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like I guess it's a thing that you experience. What is it? Wisdom over experience or something like that. Like which ones of the two are different, right? But like, yeah, I agree with you, Lauren. I think I'm on that same page where it's
You
like
guys
it's
ever
not
have you seen that Will Ferrell movie on Netflix where he's like a singer with Rachel McAdams or whatever? Well, they talk about this like ancient Icelandic folklore about this certain note, and if you hit it, it's like the note. I forget what they call it, but it's like when you get done with a tattoo and you look at it and you're like, wow. Or like Faith, if you just were to take the last year and a half of your life into one little thing and you look at it, is that like that note, like that note, is that the happiness that we keep seeing and that we're addicted to? Or is it like this overall picture, you know, like that we just keep seeking this feeling of approval after like completing something or doing something that we just can't stop seeking that again. And it gets harder and harder to attain.
Part of what I was getting at with that was that at the end of the day, like if I'm frustrated and I'm overworked and everything's crazy, 90% of the time, I'm the one putting the pressure on myself. I'm the one saying that I'm not good enough. I'm the one that's always like my own worst enemy kind of a situation a little bit. And like, I'm just trying to be more aware of like you said, like I'm further than I ever thought I would get. You know what I mean? Like, why do I still have to, why is it always at the top? Like,
in the words of Joe Dispenza, is this a mood that I'm in, or is this a temperament that I've created for myself?
Perfect.
But Faith, seriously, like a lot of us have talked about this, and it's cool that that it kind of happened on one of these shows, like, you know, because you have that about yourself, even though it sucks to talk about, but because you have like, you need to keep proving to yourself. That's why we have the thing, you know, that's why it exists. So it's like pros and cons. It's good and bad. It's good for everybody who gets to experience like what you're producing but the internal struggles are different, you know. But a lot of artists have that. A lot of artists have that mentality.
I found a motivational speaker that was talking about ambition, which is kind of what we're talking about, is ambition versus family life, you know, that kind of thing. But one of the things that it said is if you're ambitious, you'll be alone a lot. Alone, like by yourself, doing stuff, trying to push the ball forward always. Like one of the signs of ambition is that you're always alone working. And that's kind of what I feel like I feel like I do that a lot. So that's what ambition is. You end up, because who else is going to work 16 hours a day on this project? Nobody. You know what I mean? So you end up doing it all by yourself. So maybe that's, but I just think it's like self-motivation, I guess. I don't know. Confusing myself.
Well, that's pretty deep right there.
Yeah, that also depends, again, on the perspective of ambition. And like from the person, words are spoken, there's an energy with the words, and it's up to us to decipher it, right? Like what you were saying earlier about talking to the client that doesn't understand what it is that you're trying to convey. It's the same thing with like that terminology when you're talking about being lonely and having ambition. I mean, what if the ambition was to be around more people? What if the ambition was to try to learn how to speak to more people? And that would be the opposite, the antithesis for what that person is saying. And I'm not trying to debunk what they're saying, because I think that there's some truth to that. And I think it depends on the part of your journey that you're in. You know what I mean? So like, it's one of those things, it's a give and take where, I mean, myself, for example, I was in my own shop since 2013. Basically, I might have moved around to a different location for the past 2 years of that. the last 2 years of that, but I was still finding myself at those last 2 years just tired of being by myself, working by myself, and lonely to the point where I was like, man, I was in my own head for so long. I just had to get out of that funk. So what do? Do I just say that that's ambition, or do I say, well, it's time to make a change? You know what I mean? And you make drastic changes sometimes. And I think that's the funniest part is when people look at you like, what are you doing, dude? Why are you just like changing everything? It's like, well, because the wind is telling me that it's time to make a change. So I think it's important that I follow that. That's just me. And other people can. What?
Part of it too is like I'm getting like really into this permanent makeup thing.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
I can do a quarter of the work in half the time and triple my income kind of a situation. Now I can take 5 clients, double the price, but it's not my art. I'm just doing the same kind of lip form over and over again. So I'm trying to do, because it's like, and you'll find interviews of tattoo artists who are like, yeah, just do PMU now. They're just like, why? It's because like, I don't know, it's easier. I don't have to draw anything. And it's like, I'm trying to balance. Or like, what do? Do like PMU 3 days a week and body art 2 days a week? But then at the same time, if I'm making 3 times the income in 3 days, then that becomes, so I'm going to try and cherry pick my clients, but I'm trying not to sell out to permanent makeup a little bit,
Paying those bills.
For long. I feel like,
yeah, man.
No, that's
You gotta follow your gut, Face. That's what I would do. I would just tell you to follow your gut. You know what I mean? Like if your gut is telling you this is the right thing to do at the moment, then follow that thing.
What if your gut's unhealthy?
That's a good point.
Which is a leading cause of death in general, like a precursor to many things, like if your gut is not healthy. But yeah, work on, I think, Faith, like with a situation like that, like it kind of depends on what your end game is. Success can be measured totally differently. If your end game is, I want to put out my art, but then like in playing that game, you're going to deal with clients, or like there's just, I would say that the ultimate in the balance would be to find a place that you're happy with. Because you want to be successful in terms of like, you don't want to worry about bills and you want to work to make your money. But at the same time, you're very, very like passionate about art.
One of the things I like about permanent makeup is like I'm finally learning how skin tones.
About what?
How skin tones work.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we were talking about that a little bit. I liked what you had sent me.
That's part of the draw, is that the better I get with skin and makeup, right? Camouflage and like doing all these things that I'm doing, the better theoretically the body art will get, because
I see.
All that kind of stuff. Like a lot of that, but it's just, but I don't.
All right.
Those are all good questions, but yeah. Well, I had to emergency plug in my phone, so.
All right.
So I think it's about that time.
Yes, definitely. Thank you to everybody who's been watching. We had some cool comments going on through the chat, so thank you for that. If anyone has any questions or anything like that, management@reinventingthetattoo.com. Otherwise, if you guys can leave your contact information. Now would be a good time, Faith.
Faith Wynn. I run wincolor.com, WY color.com. It's a complete color system based around the raw pigments ink line, along with a weekly blog kind of explaining it piece by piece. And then you can find me on Win Color, Instagram, all that.
And Ricardo, before you go, I do kind of want to run through the chat just a little bit to give you guys an idea of what was going on. There's a lot. Tattoo Now. Thank you, Gabe, for watching, as always, of course. Creatures Cave says, hi, Faith. I met you in Hell City, and I just want to say that was such a freaking cool experience. Like seeing the book and seeing all that stuff and signing it was badass. So thanks for watching today. And Nanya Business, what's up? Hello, everybody. And let's see. Gerardo says, thank you, Ricardo. Everybody loves what you're putting out there. Excellent. So just kind of more confirmation of the world and some of the things that we don't even know. Thank you, everybody, for watching. It means a lot to each of us.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for the kind words. An awesome experience, guys. Thank you so much for watching and tuning in. And Lauren, thank you so much for the help. Raw pigments.
It was Adam R from class. Make sure we shout him out. I didn't know who you were. So I love your screen name though.
Nice. Yeah. Thank you everybody for tuning in. We'll catch you next week.